Well, a couple of things that you might find interesting. What the heck is this doing? Oh, it's just red. I thought that was a mottled donut. A couple things that you might find of interest is the local Boston pen collectors will have a meetup in December, and where we normally meet in my studio, in my gallery in my building, which is great because we have really big tables. The light is really good. It's unlike the hotel lobbies where they meet other times during the year, where the lighting is rather subdued and also, I'm not entirely positive whether the hotels like their guests to run into a flea market on their honeymoon or their big fancy business trip or whatever. Normally, the local chapter meets in the restaurant slash bar area, so it's not exactly the first thing you see when you walk in on your honeymoon is a flea market of people selling fountain pens. Though, if I were on my honeymoon, I would probably enjoy that just as much, if not more. Um, so anyway, there's that. I did suggest to the David Watts Jr., who is the club's president, that we try something new. I have very good friends that own and run a local brew pub near me, and they encourage events to take place. They do events with making art with kids. They had a Halloween costume, Puppoween, they called it. People would show up with their dogs in costumes for Halloween, and they gave out prizes and things like that. So, though it's not a flea market, it might be similar to the animal barn at a state fair or county fair. So anyway, they do lots of things, and I suggested that they agreed to host us there on a Sunday morning. And I am a little bit frightened that they'll just see a bunch of us selling pens and making money on their nickel, on their dime. They're paying for the electricity and stuff. And we aren't. If everyone drank as much as I do, they'd welcome us back every day. But most pen collectors aren't as thirsty as I am. So anyway, the point is, I suggested to the person that runs the show, runs the group, let's try something a little bit different. Rather than bringing pens that you want to sell, why don't you bring the highlights of your own collection? Let's see what you collect. I don't want to see what you just sell. There are many people I've known for nearly 40 years, and I know what they like. They tell me what they like, but I have not really seen their personal collection. I only see what they show at the pen shows or at the pen meetups. Often what they're selling are similar things to what they collect. They might have one of these, and then they find a different one that doesn't have an engraving on it, and they sell this one to help pay for their other ones. So maybe half of the things they're selling are pens that they actually, types of pens that they actually collect. But oftentimes, we collectors have the opportunity to buy an entire shoebox of pens just to get that one that you want. The other ones you don't care about, so you sell those. I want to see what you keep, what you guys keep. So what I'm suggesting we do, is bring a folder somewhere. I have a zippered case that has room for 2 or 4 dozen pens, or maybe you have a case that only holds 10 pens. Bring 5 of your favorites and maybe 5 that you might want to sell. I want to have there to be an ability to buy a pen. I go to these meetings to buy pens. I rarely go to these meetings to sell pens. But I'm always acquisitive, and I think most of us are. Most of us don't need to sell a pen, but some of us really, really, really want to buy a pen. And if I went to a show that just had pens to look at, I don't know whether I'd bother to put my shoes on to go see just the ones that other people don't want to sell. Is that true or not? I don't know. Maybe we go to museums to see paintings that we can't buy. I think some of us might be very interested in seeing a collection that isn't for sale. So anyway, now if this goes through, I have to decide what pens, which 10 or which 20 of my 3,000 pens are my favorites. Unlike many pen collectors, I have very democratic tastes, small d democratic. I have small c Catholic tastes. I like, there's good in almost nearly every pen, and I will probably bring examples of, in as few pens as possible, examples of the pens that I like. For example, I like sterling overlay pens. Here's a sterling overlay pen. I like pens that have engravings on them. Well, this is a pen that has engravings on them. It's really cool, sort of art deco PWS monogram on it. That's really, really cool. So this could tick off 2 of my boxes. Of course, I have other sterling pens that I will also bring along that are my favorites to tick off that box, the sterling box. I do also like having a pen or 2 that no one else has seen before, and this is one of those. Oh, it's just a Conklin. Oh, this ticks off 2 boxes as well. This ticks off my engraved box. It's the 1869 to 1919 is engraved on it. So what does that mean? 50th wedding anniversary? Mrs. So-and-so bought this for Mr. So-and-so. that's sweet. Or maybe Mr. So-and-so bought it for Mrs. So-and-so. I don't know. I don't know who bought these or who did anything with these. But the cool thing about this pen, you know what the coolest part is? It's a slip cap. Look at that. This almost looks modern to me. And that's what's really cool. It took me a while to learn to like orange. I thought it looked way too Halloweeny. The big red looked like it was, you know, you wore it on Halloween. But hard rubber, red hard rubber is heavy. Smells funny. Smells funny. And this red hard rubber Conklin Crescent is pretty darn rare. Yeah. I know you have 20 of them. And I know you can't give them away fast enough. No, give them to me. Don't be slow. The hard rubber mottled version without a nib that squeaks. This is when I want to, I go outside at night and I drive the bats. They run into trees. They forget what they're doing. So why is this a profanity saver, you're asking? Well, oh my God, look at this. 1870 to 1920, another maybe this was like the gift of the Magi. Now this was a year earlier. So the people that owned these two pens were neighbors. And this person said, "Oh, look, Madge, what I'm buying William for our 50th anniversary, which is, you know, next week." So Madge, is that was what her name was? I forgot. In my storyline, she said, "Oh, well, I'm celebrating our anniversary next year, so I'll do the same thing, except I'm not going to spend as much money because I'm cheapskate." 1870 to 1920, 50-year anniversary present. 50-year anniversary present. Isn't that cool? This is what's cool about collecting pens. You can be boring and say, "Oh, that's the Conklin colonial pattern and gold fill made between 1910 and 1912 or some blah, 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 fact. You could come up with equal facts for this one. Or, in addition to that, you can also look at an engraving and come up with an entire story of neighbors celebrating their 50th anniversary a year apart. This is funky because of where the threads are located on this thing. They're between the nib and the section, the grip section, are the threads, rather than here, where your fingers would bump into them. Here it's smooth, and someone in the Conklin factory thought that was a good idea. Was this a similar one? This is another slip cap. Now the difference between these two is the guy that got this for his 50th anniversary, a week later, he was run over by a milk truck. Not a milk truck, a horse, and carrying milk. Whereas this person, his next door neighbor, used this pen all the time. Maybe the milkman used this pen all the time to take down their orders. Oh yes, Mrs. Smith, you'd like some more cream. You certainly don't need it, Mrs. Smith. Could I interest you in low-fat milk? This has had a lot of use, and that's kind of fun. What else can we discover here? See, here's where the threads are normally, that part. So why is this a profanity saver? Well, in the olden days, let's say you owned a Waterman like this. And this is before the age of clips. This is when a pen looking from the side is circular. And what does that remind you of? It starts with a W and ends with an L, has an H in it, and a couple of E's. Yes, a wheel. And what do wheels do? They roll. What happens if you set this down on a desk that has maybe a couple of pieces of paper on it, and you put it on the paper, and what does it do? Rolls. So the Conklin Pen Company decided, we got this big bumpy thing here. What the hell are we going to have to, how do we pitch this to the buying public? Why do you want to have a pen with a goiter or a tumor or a wart on the end of its nose? How are we going to get this to the marketplace? Well, they hired Mark Twain to say something about this pen. And what did he say? Oh, sorry. Come on. Take two. It doesn't roll off my desk. It's a profanity saver. Quote, it's a profanity saver. It can't roll off my desk, or it doesn't roll off my desk. So that's what Mark Twain said. And a fellow pen collector, when I told him that story, he said, Pierre, no it doesn't. It's fucking ugly. That was his response to the profanity saver line. What else do we have here? I'm also, in addition to trying to decide what 20 pens represent my collection, and I'm sure I've described this to you before, but I'll do it a little bit again. Make a list. There. Look at this paper. Look, I'm going to do something that I rarely do. I'm going to use a pen to write words. I have in my house, among the many places, the many cabinets, the many storage things I have one particular set of 13 drawers that I always start off when I have a new person visiting me to see my collection, because the 13 drawers, each drawer has a microcosm of what all the other 3,000 pens are. The top drawers, they may not be in the order I'm giving them, but one of the top drawers shows demo pens. So these are pens that were made for salesmen or women to have at the counter, the pen counter, to show how the lever worked, or to show where the ink goes, or to show how the clip is connected to the pen. So what they are pens that are either clear plastic, so you can see all of the working parts, or have holes cut in them, so you can see the working parts that way. So I'll probably bring one of those. Also in that I have dummy pens. I don't have that many of those, and they're not really worth anything, but what they were something that looked just like this, and it was made of wood, and it had a gold colored piece of metal crammed into its section, and they would be on display in the window of the store, so that if some miscreant, some hooligan, some wastrel took a brick and broke the window to steal these valuable pens, they'd end up with just a bunch of wooden dummies. So sometimes they're wood, sometimes they're solid hard rubber. I don't even know if they're hard rubber. They're heavier. They almost feel like they're ceramic. They might be. So I've got one drawer has that. So I'll probably bring one of those as one of my collection, one element of my collection. I don't actively search them for them, but when I see them, I buy them. I accidentally bought 3 more safety pen dummies. They were in a lot of pens that included what in the crappy, sorry, Conklin, shitty photograph. I can still swear. Photographed. I couldn't tell that they were dummy pens. Out of focus, I could see that they were more, but they were. So I got those. So if I looked back at that lot, I probably lost money because these dummy pens aren't really worth that much. Okay, so then the second and third drawers, I have pens that have really or various filling systems. Some of them are really cool, like the J.G. Ryder pen. Some are, I'll bring a match and coin filler for the non-smoker, because it just cracks me up. Some pens, all they had was a little tiny hole in the barrel, and you'd use your match, which back in the time were all wood. They had a little piece of sulfur or whatever it is on the top, and you'd lift your big old cowboy boot. As long as it wasn't covered in manure, you could, strike the match on your boot, and you'd smoke put it in your, light your cigarette with it, your hand rolled cigarette. So, and then they also made some that just had a slit in them, and they were called coin fillers. And there's some that had both a slit and a wide spot for either a coin or a match. But I have one that's a match filler for non-smokers. You unscrew the back of the blind cap, and there's a little metal post, and it fits into a little hole. And I also have got another one which cracks me up. It's another match filler, but maybe they were afraid of tornadoes or something. You hear about a tornado where a piece of straw can be embedded into a tree. So maybe this was made by someone that was fearing that could perhaps happen. They're writing a note during a tornado and a straw goes in and pushes the rubber sack or something. So they have a little thing like this, like a little donut that goes over the hole just in case a piece of straw is flying through the air. So they just crack me up. Funny, funny, funny. This is the drawer that's the funniest, almost. Um, I also have, I'll call it, I don't know if it's the fourth drawer, but it's the Schaefer drawer. Schaefer. And it's a drawer that uh, the the Black Pen Society people would love. They're all black, plain black, Schaefer balance pens, and there's 40 or 50 of 30 maybe, all lined up, different sizes, different thicknesses. I don't really care about the bands like some people do. They want one that has the fancy bands. These are all just different sizes of the Schaefer pen, and from the golf size to the senior size to the short fat size to the short skinny size to the long skinny, they're all essentially the same shape but variations on that same shape. So I kind of like that. That's sort of, this drawer is the equivalent to a coin collector who wants to get every penny, an example of every penny from every mint from every year. It sounds kind of boring because it's a list that you know. You just have to find the ones. There's no surprises. You're not going to see one that's made. I don't know. I guess you could have double prints or things that were printed wrong. There's all of that. But anyway, these are just variations on this theme. These aren't in any order. I also really like Waterman. Waterman pens are sort of an all-time favorite. So I have a selection of lots of Watermans from throughout the years. It's sort of, I also have one for Parker's, and I think of all these two are sort of similar drawers, and I don't really collect Parker's. I have Parker's, many, um, many 51s. We'll get to that drawer in a minute. But these are two that sort of show the entire history of Waterman and Parker. So that's what those drawers are about. I have pens that are sterling, smooth sterling, smooth or simple overlays. They include the 404, 402 and a half, or is that what it is? Yeah. In Barleycorn, I have a 494, which is one of my three favorite pens, is Apple Boom pens. I have a Smooth Sterling, More Safety. I have lots of these. So I'll probably the thing I'm going to bring to the group, I'll probably bring two or three of those. Uh, I do have a drawer of fancy pens, fancy overlays. I don't normally collect them, but I have a few that I really, really like. And almost all of them are in that drawer. So, but it's not really a focus of my collection. So maybe I won't include that. This is the only drawer that pen collectors, serious pen collectors, would find that they'd see anything they want out of this, is that drawer. They don't care about these other ones. I don't care about you. Red hard rubber, mottled hard rubber. I have a drawer full of these. In fact, this used to be in that drawer, and it may go back in that drawer where it belongs with its siblings. But you see them together, and I think I do have some black pens in there too. And I open up that drawer and I say, well, back in the olden days, pens were like the Model T Ford. They came in one color, black. Well, then they came in red, and then they came in red and black. So that was your color choice. Then I have pens that are engraved or inscribed. And some of them are really, really fun. They have really long inscriptions. Some have there's 3 mechanical pencils I have that say U.S. government. One said it in sort of small, understated lettering, U.S. government. And then there was one that had it in bigger letters with gold paint inside of them so you could see it from across the room. U.S. government. And then my favorite one is, in quotes, U.S. government. I think that's pretty funny. So I have pens that are inscribed. There is one that I have in that drawer. I think it's in that drawer that was inscribed by hand by the owner with his jackknife. He carved, like you would on the oak tree in the park. You'd write your initials and another person's initials with the heart going through it. And he carved on the barrel of his pen and on the blind cap of a Parker jackknife his initials. I think it was WS or something. And they're, W is like this, and the lines don't meet, and the S is sort of, like that. Clearly, he did it by hand, and it's kind of fun. I have another Schaefer senior pen that was used by the pen engraver as a test pen, and evidently he was able to. He had some sort of, they used to call them outfits, some sort of kit that you would take all of this metal type, put them together in a matrix, and then heat it up and brand the pen. And of course, he's writing it backwards, so he needs to test out, if he spelled it correctly and stuff. So this pen has the sample spelling, and this, an example of what he did with the other pens, and maybe he was engraving or hand stamping pens for an entire cities' police departments, because it says, fingerprint department, ballistics, um, evidence lab or evidence storage, detective, things like that. And there's maybe 5 or 6 different categories of what happens in a police station. And I just think that's really, really cool. Do you think that's cool? You sophisticated pen collector over there? No, you don't want that because it has something engraved on it? Yeah, I figured that. What about you? Do you like it? No one does, just me. And then I have a drawer of well-worn or trauma victims. And these are things that no one, not a single one of you, and I can say this with almost complete certainty, will not like. They're pens that have homemade repairs to them, pens that suffered trauma. I have one Waterman Ripple pen. The lever is here. I just have the barrel. I don't have the whole pen. I'm sort of afraid to see what the rest of it looks like. But it has, the lever's missing. It has big black sort of felt or fabric, woven fabric electrical tape, which is how they used to make that kind of tape. And then where the pen was broken in half or broken in thirds. And over here, there's another bunch of tape that was taped around the other part that broke. And the person also, and I've seen this in other cases, well, I'll describe another one. There was another one where there was a clip missing, or clip fell off. It's a Schaefer pen from the 40s, 30s, 40s, and the clip was missing or fell off. So the person found the clip, put it back on the pen, and then wrapped string around it really, really tightly to hold it in place. And then he or she covered this with a sort of varnish or shellac to sort of seal everything together and to glue it in place. I think that's really cool. The fact that, you loved this pen so much, you just didn't want to go and buy a new one when it was broken in pieces. You put it back together again, like Humpty Dumpty, and you had a pen that you used, and these were used years after the trauma. It's like when you see the picture of that skull from wherever it was from. I don't know if it was ancient Greece or Egypt, or where they, someone complained about a headache or who knows what it is. And so they dug in to his scalp and cut a hole in it to remove the pain, whether it was just an evil spirit or an actual tumor or who knows what all it was. And then based on the growth after that trauma, where the bone continued to grow or something, there was some way where they were able to say that it was this person lived another 30 years after this operation. Well, I love seeing pens that had a trauma that continued to live and serve their owners. 51s. I have a drawer of 51s, and a 51 pen took a while for me to learn to love. I hated it. I hate this. I don't like 51s. I don't want them here, there. I don't want them anywhere. Think of green eggs and ham. And finally, one day, I woke up in a sweat and I suddenly realized what a great pen they were. It took me years to figure that out. So I have a couple examples of 51s, plus I have the version that Waterman made to copy them as best they could. I have the version that Wohl Eversharp made to copy them. I have the version that the Moore Pen Company made to copy them. Schaefer didn't really need to do anything that was, is the Targa, is this sort of their version of the 51? I don't know. But so I have that, and then the drawer beneath that, I have really shitty versions. Really shitty. See? Conklin Crescent, you're not stopping profanity at all, are you? I would think almost every pen company was overjoyed with the Parker 51 because now you didn't have to make a big nib like this. You could make a little tiny one, little itty bitty tiny one that you could then cover up with as much plastic as you wanted, as much as you could get away with without Parker suing you. And it's really fun because they're really, really shitty. Okay, another drawer. I have pen and pencil sets. What am I going to bring to represent that, I wonder? It's hard to know. Some pen and pencil sets really, really match. Usually they're the same length and the same color, the same plastic, the same trim. But sometimes certain companies did a job of matching them better than others. For example, the Streamline Parker dual-fold pen and pencil set match very well. The cap, the clip, cap, barrel, nozzle, nose, whatever it's called, cone, nose cone, they all sort of match the fountain pen. The early version of a Parker, I'll just show you for God's sake. Okay, where are you? Parker. For God's sake. When Parker first came out with their dual fold, the early dual fold looked like this. They don't match. This has a big old gold crown, and this hides the eraser, and underneath the eraser you pull the eraser out somehow, and inside there is extra leads, but they don't match, do they? No. The answer? No, they do not match. Look at that nib. There's something about the shape of a Parker dual fold nib that's really, really sexy. Looks like this. flares out more than it needs to, and then when it this shape is much more curved than other shapes that might be more straight like that. They really had fun with their, I mean, not all the time. Anyway, what am I talking about? So that was this version where they don't match, but they got their act together by the time they came up with the streamlined version. The pencil matches the pen. Look at that. Here's where the eraser would be by taking off the whole cap rather than just taking off the crown. So which pen and pencil set am I going to bring to represent pen and pencil set dumb? I'm not sure. There are so many to choose from. Maybe I'll bring this as my pen and pencil set because this is so goddamn cool. It's swan, pen, and pencil, and nail file, and comb. They all have the same initials, MRB, the same pattern. Is this what I'm going to bring? See, this one could work for engraving and pen and pencil set. I could kill two birds with one stone. But this is very weird. This is not a common thing. And in fact, I'm not even sure. I guess this must have been made by the Swan Company, or made by the Swan Company to be sold by Mark Cross or some purveyor of toiletries and overnight bags and stuff like that. So, but it's really cool. Okay, where do these go? Another really interesting pen and pencil set is the Schaefer Snorkel set. The pencil is so thin though. It's like almost uncomfortable to write with because it's so thin. I think that had they made the pencil fatter, it might have been a better plan. What are your thoughts? Red section. I'm just, those people out there that know that will discover that their trousers are getting a little tight. Pen and pencil sets. Pens with apps. I do like pens and pencils that contain some extra thing. Could be a lighter. It could be, I have one that has a spirit level on the mechanical pencil. I have perpetual calendars on pens and pencils. They're really, really fun. And I collect those as well. So maybe I'll bring a couple of those because they're sort of wacky and fun. And I'm forgetting what other drawers I have in my keeper collection or my focus, the pens that the elements of the foci of my collecting. And as you can see, it's a very Catholic, small c Catholic taste. So why else do I have these Conklins here? Well, I have a friend in Germany who likes watching my YouTubes, and he asked to see some Conklins. So I grabbed these out of the couple of drawers I have of these things to show him and to show you. So let's talk about that. I'll also say to you guys that what was I going to tell you? Yeah, I remember. If any of you want me to pick a topic to talk about with you, or if any of you want to broadcast with me as a guest, I'm very happy to consider doing that for you. That doesn't belong in this group. So tell me what you want to talk about, and we'll talk. I did one of these with Wasky Squirrel. I've done it with Todd Merrill. I've done it with Ms. Marilyn. So if any of you want me to talk about a particular kind of pen, I'm happy to do it. If you want me to talk about a particular pen or pen model, or what you do with what we both do with pens, I'm very happy to entertain that idea of having you come on the show with me. So let's, for the 5 or 10 minutes, talk about Conklin crescents. I don't know any of the facts, so just bear with me. I must say that rarely do you see me carrying these pens around with me. And why is that? Is it the bumpy thing? Is it what? What is it? I do remember going to a bar one night for dinner and beers, and I was in a Conklin Crescent phase, and I hung out with my friend Craig Robertson, who is another neighbor of mine and a musician. I think he was playing there that night. And so I sat and was drawing and doodling with these pens and drinking beer after beer after beer. And then I got on my bike to go home. I got all the way home and started taking my clothes off and realized that my pens were missing. So I put all my clothes back on and went all the way back, following my path back to the bar. I think I went to the bar first, thinking I left them there and hoping that someone grabbed them. Well, they didn't, so I turned around to make my way back, following my path on my bicycle. And within about 52 feet, there they were, all in a big heap in the gutter. And these weren't just your regular number 2. These were the big number 6 or 8 pens, the big ones that are worth now hundreds of dollars each. And at the time they were worth maybe $100, $150. And there they were. So thank God. I think maybe that's why I don't carry them with me, because I'm afraid. I'm traumatized by that experience. But when I do have them in my hand, filled with ink, I find them kind of fun. Does it bother me that the goiter here hits my hand where it does? Now, sometimes I love, pushing the pen up and down as I'm writing and drawing. I'll move, like this. If I'm drawing something, I want to see more of the drawing, I'll hold it further back, and sometimes I'll hold it like this. And so I'm always doing this moving up and down stuff, and that's great when you're using a pen like this. It's completely smooth all the way, or a wall all metal pen, because the length is more or less the same all the way. Desk pens are great for that too, because it's just one long smooth sort of taper. There's no bumps anywhere, there's no threads, and it's really sort of fun having this ability to move it back and forth. Well, this thing, you got this big old bump, and is it like a stone in your shoe when you're walking down the street or you're drawing? This thing annoys you? Maybe it just reminds me that I'm using a Conklin. Maybe it helps me hold it in some weird sort of way. I don't know. So there's that. Conklin nibs of this era are really, really good. Well, they always made good nibs, as did most companies, but they were more likely than not flexible. I think it's sort of part of their old-fashionedness that I think about when I think of these pens. They look old-fashioned-y, because of the goiter, I think. That's what's so weird about this pen, is this almost looks modern, except for the goiter, the donut, and the locking ring. This thing is a locking ring, but people sometimes call it a donut. So what did I learn today? Well, the thing I really enjoyed the most of today is this thing, these two pens that were given as 50th anniversary gifts. I just think it's really, really cool that they're a year apart, for one thing. I mean, it would have been kind of cool if they were the same year and they had the same exact kind of engraving, and I would have maybe thought it was like the husband and wife buying the same thing for each other. The husband buying this one for she must have been a battle axe to get this big gold one, though, because it's a big pen. Normally the ladies in 1920 would get a more demure pen than this one. But I like the fact anyway that they both were the same purpose. And I didn't know that until somewhere between now and 59 minutes ago. I don't know when I first saw that. But anyway, I'm going to say goodbye now. I've got so much stuff I need to do, and this is not one of them. But I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that if you are one of the Boston Pen people, that come to the meeting in December, that you'll bring pens that you really, really like. You're the highlight of your collection. And I don't care what they are. They could be all the different colors Lamis you can buy. It could be the Kaweco Sport that you love journaling with. And the brass is beautifully patinaed and worn down, and you'll show it to me and I'll say, my God, you love that pen. And it'll make me smile. It's your turn to make me smile now. No, I don't mean that entirely. I mean that only partially. One thing, I will say this about Conklin. This is a Conklin number 2 nib. I'll find another one. You tell me if they're both the same. That's a 3. Or is that a 2? Their nibs, even though they're marked number 2 sometimes or number 3, they're all so different. Now, this is a 2, and that's a 2. I guess they are more or less the same. No, this one's bigger. It's not just, they crammed into a narrower thing. Like you can see a Waterman number 2 nib that fit in a half-size pen, thinner pen, and they clearly are smaller or curved more or something, but it seems like they're Conklin pens that are they seem way different than that. So anyway, time for breakfast. I've been up since 4. Bye.